Recently, we've been able to take a look at some newly posted concept art from artist Khang that was meant for Alien Covenant. All of these images date back to 2014, when the working title of the film was Alien Paradise Lost. The artist, Khang isn't credited in Alien Covenant for his work, yet his concepts were most likely part of earlier drafts for the movie that unfortunately we never saw. First off, we get to take a look at a few images that were depicting a much different engineer city than what we eventually saw on Planet 4. Towering above the city are ancient statues that look to be of engineers that have a similar Xeno-like armor or growth on them than what we see on the LV-223 engineers. However, here we see even more of the Xeno bioengineered look on their bodies. The architecture here is very Giger-esque. In Prometheus and Covenant, Ridley made the decision to have the engineer buildings not appear in the Giger style, which was a big mistake to me. Here, that style is so prevalent that we can even see the phallic-shaped buildings here that I know H.R. Giger would have approved of. There are even towers resembling rib cages and arms or appendages off the buildings that conjure up images of xenomorph dorsal tubes. We even see egg-like dome structures and can only wonder what may be growing inside of them. Here on the wall to the right, we can even see openings on the structure that look just like the openings on the Juggernaut ships. It's things like this design continuity that connect the engineer cities to the ships that they pilot, that would show a link between Alien and engineers. We see an image with David almost dancing amongst the dying engineers after he has likely deployed his weaponized version of the black substance. In Prometheus, we got to see Fifield slowly morph into some kind of xeno-human hybrid. In the images here, we get to see a similar process happening, although this time it's an engineer, not a human, that's being mutated. To me, this has to be where the idea for the neomorphs came from. We see that the engineers with their milky white skin retain that white skin coloring when evolving into what they call here the reconstruct or an alien engineer hybrid. The head shape, the skin color, it all looks very close to the neomorphs that we eventually saw on film. Next up, we have what looks to be one of the reconstructs or alien engineer hybrids, although clearly this one is not having a good day. It appears that there is some form of proto-facehugger or alien worm bursting from this engineer's head. And it's not just one. If you look close, there appears to be dozens of these things. And here we have a more detailed image of whatever creature was possibly coming out of that engineer's head. Now the engineer here doesn't appear to be mutating, yet he definitely appears to be infected, as we can see those small worm-like creatures growing from inside of him. With the next images, we get to see Khang ideas of how the engineer hybrid, or neomorphs if you will, evolve into their next stage. In this stage, the face is present, although buried underneath the pale white covering. And here we get to see some more finalized stages of the alien engineer evolution. I just love this top image. It looks so evil, almost having a Joker-like smile. And here we have what looks to be some kind of hybrid runner concept. It's so sleek, and I just love how its fingers or claws bend back upon itself when walking or running. I would have loved to seen this guy animated just to see how he would move. We now come to David, where we get to see what he's been up to originally before we got to the final drafts of Alien Covenant. In a rather grisly scene, we see that David has taken what would appear to be a group of human women and somehow cocooned or molded them into this wall. This image really reminds me of the concept art of Elizabeth Shaw and the mutations that David was trying to apply to her. This room here looks a lot like the pilot room of the Juggernaut craft. Even when looking at the photo's title, it says it's a telescope in an egg room. Although if that is a telescope in the center of the room, it's a much different design than what we saw on the Juggernauts. There's even an orrery in the room similar to the one we saw on the Juggernaut and Prometheus. To me, this is either the interior of an engineer spacecraft, or it's possible that this room is used to communicate with other spacecraft. At the bottom left corner of this picture, we also see a table with something piled on it. In the next two images, we get a closer look at this table. It looks like David is trying to grow some kind of egg or embryo out of organic material. In the next shot, he has either already harvested the eggs or he's getting ready to grow another set here. And here we get a better shot at what looks to be the eggs that David is growing on that table. Inside, it looks to be some kind of small alien creature, as in the center shot you can easily see the elongated head. And here we see David tending to a different group of these eggs or embryos on a separate table. In the background, we can see what looks to be like two different larger creatures, possibly engineers, mutating in some kind of sac. And here we see David tending to more eggs in some kind of rack system. I'd just like to note that even the rack system here has a Giger look to its design. This image is probably the most exciting one to me because we get to see the engineers alive before David is bombed or experimented on them. Is it possible that the engineers were experimenting on each other with the black substance and that these images aren't the result of David's testing? We clearly see an engineer in mid-evolution changing into an alien-engineer hybrid here, yet there are calm engineers standing around in the background. Did they mutate this poor soul, or are they tending to one of David's unlucky test subjects? We can clearly see that the mutated engineer is in pain, and it's even evident that someone has even tended to him by wrapping gauze around his injuries. Was this a sacrifice, an accident, or an experiment? I'd also be really curious to find out what the floating egg-shaped object is in the background. And that is the last of Khang Lee's amazing looking concept art. What do you guys think of the images? Would you have rather seen a more Giger looking architecture to the Engineer City? I know I would, it just helps tie up things better in my opinion. Do you like the Neomorph as the way it was depicted in Alien Covenant? Or do you like this idea of the Neomorph being an alien-engineer hybrid? If you guys have any questions or comments, I'd love to hear your thoughts down below. And as always, thanks for watching, take care, and I hope to see you next time.